G'day everybody, Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion. Today is Friday the 5th of September 2025 and we're going to do a bit of a wrap up of the time we've had here at Parliament House in Canberra. We were here for the 2 sitting weeks that have just gone. As people may know, we were here for the first sitting week, which was the last week of August, and then we went back down to Victoria to attend the Bush Summit in Ballarat, and as soon as that was over we came back up here to Canberra to start to do more interviews with politicians and try to do meetings, politicians, bureaucrats and all sorts of people around the place here. So I just wanted to have a look at a few of the things we saw last weekend that Anthony Albanese, who attended the Bush Summit in Ballarat, got basically chased out of town with a whole heap of tractors and a heap of farmers and so on. And there was some bit of a kerfuffle about that back here in Parliament when Anthony Albanese was speaking to Ann Webster, who is the Nationals candidate, the Nationals member for Mallee back in Victoria there. And he made some comments, and some very disparaging comments that were starting to go to a really, really bad place. And so we've been trying to get hold of Ann Webster for quite a while to have a bit of a chat to her about, you know, what's really happening with regard to the whole energy sector thing. Anyway, Ann has been very, very uncooperative, let's just say, to trying to speak to Billboard Battalion about what's happening here. So we were actually there in Ballarat when the things that were happening, and I find it very, very disturbing that the Prime Minister, Sleazy Albanese, in question time a couple of days ago, virtually came to the point of associating the farmers and Ann Webster down in Ballarat in Victoria with, you guessed it, neo-Nazis. Sleazy stinking Albanese was sitting up there and he just almost couldn't help himself. And I must say to David Littleproud's credit, he on the other side of the chamber, and I don't like using that kind of terminology, but anyway, so David Littleproud, the leader of the Nationals, actually took Albanese on, and he was saying, don't you dare, don't you think about going there. So I think Albanese was doing some of the sums. How much trouble could he get in for trying to brand our farmers as neo-Nazis? So just to sort of give people a bit of an idea of where a lot of this stuff has come from. In the past, the government and the media try and brand people as some kind of extreme something, to try and demonise that kind of person, and if they're not on the side of the extremist left-wing whack jobs, then they are branded as something. So we've seen the whole thing where they've called everybody racists. If you don't agree with their policies, or if you don't agree with the crap that they go on with, or the thing they're trying to do to destroy your country, you're branded as a racist. Then, once we moved on, we included, of course, the term climate denier. So if you're a sensible, normal person with reasonable intelligence, and you work out that the whole climate change thing is just a hoax, it's lies, and it's designed to destroy so much of our country and shut down so much of our country, then you are branded as a climate denier. Then, the next thing, of course, we came up with, let's go with white supremacist. Privileged, overprivileged white supremacist. That was the next kind of a thing that they tried to brand everybody with, to stereotype everybody with. That's a lot of these scumbag lefties who talk about they don't like stereotypes and all this sort of thing. And then, of course, the latest thing that they're talking about is neo-Nazis. So on the back of the March for Australia, of course. Now, this is their favourite thing. Everybody is now a neo-Nazi. If you don't believe the propaganda and the lies coming out of the left and the government here, then that's what you're branded as, a neo-Nazi. So we get down to the point where Sleazy Albanese just about called our farmers neo-Nazis. Now, I know quite a lot of the farmers and other people who are at the Ballarat Bush Summit, and these people have been fighting for agriculture and against a lot of these wind turbines and transmission lines and so on for quite a long time. And so therefore we can't have some maggoty, flea-bitten politician, namely the Prime Minister, or basically most of the Labor Party front bench, in fact, calling our people neo-Nazis, because what that is inflammatory, that is dangerous, and what the Prime Minister and so on are trying to do is to cause hatred and unrest. They're trying to brand people as some sort of an antisocial whatever. So therefore, that is their go. That's what they're trying to do, is to create conflict and stereotypical hatred. So therefore, you know, they're worse than racists, they're worse than climate whatever. They are the people deliberately causing division in our community and hatred. That is their MO. That's what they do. So we did see, of course, that in the Parliament yesterday, Anne Webster, the federal member for Mallee, did put a question to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister basically fired back by reading parts of a speech made by Anne Webster. Also, he included some stuff from Barnaby Joyce and David Littleproud, which showed that a few years ago, when the coalition government was in power, they were all for this renewable disaster. However, it's which I must say would be pretty embarrassing for them. But at the end of the day, we're seeing now a shift, and we're seeing that these politicians are actually coming out and speaking against a lot of this disaster, to the point where Barnaby Joyce actually put a private member's bill up just recently to dump net zero, which we need to. We need to pull out of net zero. We need to pull out of the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and the World Economic Forum. So that's a step in the right direction. And I know that, you know, I've rubbed Anne Webster up the wrong way a fair bit, because we simply asked for our politicians just tell us the truth, because there's so much happening in the seat of Mallee and that general area right down to the Central Highlands there, around Ballarat and so on, with regard to this renewable catastrophic disaster. So just tell the truth, and the truth is that this stuff has been planned for decades, and it is planned to fail. It is planned to wipe out so much of our farmland and to make sure that so many of our farmers can't farm anymore. That's what it's about, getting them off the land and off those properties. There's a lot more to talk about in regard to the changes to the legislation in the Victorian Parliament with regard to fines and so on, but we'll touch base a bit more on that at a different time. So one of the big issues that was happening here in Canberra this week has been the issue of the Australian flag. So we had National Flag Day a couple of days ago, of which Billboard Battalion, you know, we did a fair bit on that, and there was a fair bit happened in the Senate. So a bit of a stoush erupted when Jacinta Namatjira-Price came into the Senate with a flag, an Australian flag, draped around her shoulders. That kicked off, a bit of a blue, and so they really started to carry on about that. I think One Nation got involved, Senator Ralph Babet got involved, and they were actually trying to fight for the Australian people. But it seemed that there were a number of the lefties who actually hate the Australian flag, and I think no better example was made when the former leader of the Greens, Adam Bant, refused to do interviews in front of the Australian flag. And fortunately, Adam Bant is now just a bad memory, more or less a bit of a nightmare actually. He's toast, he's gone, and that's appropriate because he was just no good. So the Australian flag thing now, there was a vote on it, and at some point there was one of the politicians in there said, well, if people are allowed to wear the Australian flag, he wanted to wear, can you believe it, of all things, the Palestinian flag. Now this is the Australian Parliament, and whether you like it or not, or you do support it or don't support it, that's a you thing, which is fair enough. But if you can't have the Australian flag in the Australian Federal Senate, then the people who are carrying on about that shouldn't be there. They are no good. They're traitors. They're not in the interest. They're not operating in the interest of Australia. And to say bring in, you know, foreign flags is just that's not on. Not in a pink fit. So they can just rack off. That's as simple as that. But this just goes to show you exactly what many of these so-called politicians think of Australia. They hate it. So I wanted to look at, we attended some stuff there about Nauru, and Nauru is a small island nation where the Australian government is trying to do a deal there to send certain people. I think they might be political asylum seekers who may be criminals and have done the wrong thing and outstayed visas and whatever. So, you know, there is an enormous amount of money in the billions that the Australian government is negotiating with Nauru. So what could be wrong with that? Are we looking at corruption there? What are we looking at? You know, if you look at the stuff that we saw, then there's some pretty big problems with here, and could end up with Nauru getting up to, you know, possibly $7 billion worth of Australian money. So that's something we really need to be very, very concerned about. We also saw some sort of a deal, it appears, is being done with Anthony Albanese to bring in enormous numbers of Indian workers to build what I believe is basically a massive amount of new houses for Indians to come over and move to Australia. And I think that the deal is that only Indian workers are going to be working on it. So therefore, if we've got a Labor Prime Minister, where does a Labor Prime Minister get off doing a deal that cuts out Australian workers, Australian tradies, suppliers? I'm not sure how bad this thing extends, but at the end of the day, you would think that somebody who supposedly represents Australian workers and the unions would be jumping up and down and saying, hang on, we want Australian tradies, Australian construction workers to be working on these places, not bringing in an enormous cohort of foreigners from whatever country, doesn't matter, but in this case India. So where's the CFMEU? Just wondering. The CFMEU, you would think, would actually say something about Australians getting jobs. The construction industry, that's you, CFMEU, okay? Construction, forestry, marine. This is you people. So where the hell are you? I think that, as we see, you know, the unions these days are nothing more than a money collection agency for the Labor Party, which is in fact the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and the WHO. I think our unions are a joke. They've sold out their members. They collect membership money. They tell them that they're fighting for their jobs. I think they're full of crap. And I can especially tell you that the Labor Party are full of crap. They are not a party for the workers at all. The workers are just an inconvenient necessity. And I know now that one of the politicians we've been trying to get hold of is Dan Repiccioli. He's the federal member now for Hunter. And we've been trying to talk to Dan. His office gives us their normal crap. But Dan came out of the coal mines in the Hunter Valley there. And I'm wondering you know, the coalition, the Labor Party's position on net zero is basically to shut down coal mines. So I just wonder where Dan Rippercholi is. MIA, missing in action. I saw him get up there the other day and do what's called a Dorothy Dix. Get up there and say, oh, what's the government doing for, I don't know, workers or housing or some other crap that he was going on about, one of their planned staged BS questions. So Dan is a dismal failure as far as I'm concerned. But from his office, we've been told nothing. Send us an email. We've done that a million times to all sorts of offices now. So I'd say that the Labor Party have a very, very strict policy of do not talk to anybody. Don't be interviewed. Don't answer any questions. Have no transparency, no accountability. And that's where this is going. So, and I'll take this point to say some of the politicians that we've been trying to get hold of is our old mate Charlotte Walker from South Australia, South Australian Senator. Doesn't seem to want to talk. Pretty big on mouth when it gets into Parliament, little 21-year-old there. Apparently the youngest one to ever get into the Senate. But doesn't want to say anything, doesn't want to talk about any of Labor Party policy. Dan Rippercholi, trying to get hold of him. Yep, no way. Mark Butler, our old mate Mark Butler, the Federal Minister for Health. He's missing in action. His office don't want you to talk to him. We look at Lisa Neville. Lisa Neville is a Labor Party politician, supposed to be, for the seat of Bendigo. Lisa's still missing in action. Can't find her. They seem to run and hide pretty quickly. And just to balance it up a little bit, we've been trying to get hold of Alex Antic. Alex Antic, I ran into him in Parliament House there the other day, and he said, "Oh, look, give my office a call. No worries. We'll sort out an interview and a meeting." So the jury's still out. Alex Antic, we've contacted his office a number of times, and nothing. So we'll keep you up to date with what Alex Antic is up to. Seems to sort of fall into the same category as the rest of the Labor Party, really, not wanting to talk to you. And there's also, of course, Ann Webster, and she's still missing in action too. Doesn't want to talk to us. But I would defend her in one regard, and that is the Prime Minister talking about her being involved with neo-Nazis. Hell no, that's not on. So now we look at something else that came up. There was some photos were presented with Daniel Andrews, our ex-leader of Victoria, scumbag lowlife Daniel Andrews, the Premier, who now is across in China apparently taking photos with some of the worst dictators and killers in the world. He's in there with some of the worst human rights abuses, dictators in the world. And as we know, we saw here just the other day, a massive big Chinese delegation of protesters here on the lawns of Parliament House, and they were talking about organ harvesting. And this is a fairly serious thing in good old China, the human rights capital of the world, where, and I've seen a lot of stuff of this over the last few years, where they just kill people to take organs and flog them off on the market. So where we see Daniel Andrews, he's an absolute traitor, and Daniel Andrews is a terrorist. Make no mistake, when he was running Victoria, they cost people to die. They caused people to die. And Daniel Andrews had total control of the Victoria Police Force at that point, and used that with tactics that I think that Xi Jinping, the Chinese government, the North Korean government will be so proud of. And that's why you see Daniel Andrews now with his ugly, horror-headed looking mug sitting up there with the likes of Xi Jinping, with the likes of North Korea, of Putin, all these sort of people. So, yeah, so there was a couple of questions asked of Slimebag Albanese by some of the other side about Daniel Andrews. And anyway, Albanese wasn't too keen on answering anything, of course. And then he was even less interested in answering questions about a number of ISIS brides that looks as if they're going to be brought to Australia or come back to Australia. And there was a lot of concern over these ISIS brides who have been completely, totally radicalised, and the government appears to be either helping them to come back to Australia or be aware that they're coming back to Australia. So, you know, when we see the government talk about neo-Nazis, domestic terrorists or something, we don't need domestic ones because they're importing their own. So that's another big issue that was on the agenda. So we also sent an email to the office of Jordan Steele, who is a senator from Western Australia. Jordan Steele John, sorry, he's a Greens bloke. And we heard a lot of commentary about the NDIS. There's big issues with the NDIS. And so I tried to talk to Jordan Steele. However, his office, as usual, we'll cut that off. But as luck would have it, and one of the incredible benefits of operating here in Canberra while Parliament's sitting, as with many of them, we ran into him down in the foyer. What are the chances? So I had a quick chat to Jordan Steele, John, who has a big interest in the NDIS. And I said to Jordan, well, I'd like to talk to you and have an interview about the extension of the NDIS and, you know, what the government, and this is the likes of Mark Butler, the likes of our fearless, filthy fleabag Prime Minister Albanese, and most of the Labor Party, in fact, already know, is that with regard to people who have some sort of a handicap and even older people, that the deal that Mark Butler just didn't pull out of and signed us up to with the World Health Organization, there are some very, very nasty plans for people who are invalid or people who have some sort of an incapacity, all this kind of stuff. People who have mental and emotional problems. There's some very specific plans coming from the World Health Organization for these people, and these plans end very, very badly, to the point where, you know, these kind of people under these international treaties, and particularly from the World Health Organization and the United Nations, these kind of people, they are considered to be a burden on society. And I put it to Jordan Steele, John, and we'll be putting it to a lot of these other Labor scumbags when we come back, and Greenies, to say, you are aware, or you damn well should be, that there are some very serious things planned along the lines of Canada, and then Canada's MAID legislation. And MAID legislation is medical assistance in dying, which is in fact a euthanasia program. So we need to really start to drill down and push these politicians and go, listen, what the hell is wrong with you people? You're signing up to things from international treaties with the World Health Organization that want to see forced euthanasia programs. So when we hear this filth bag Mark Butler and the rest of these Labor scum sit up there and tell us how they want to protect people, and they're putting up all this support for medical support and all this other crap, they're actually signing up to policies that are going to see people taken out. That's literally where this is at. This is what this is about. So therefore, I think it's even more important that Billboard Battalion is here in Canberra, and we can put the pressure on these politicians. We can really start to load this up, because what they've got planned for us is absolutely horrific. And everything we see that puts more pressure on the Australian people, more laws that puts you out of business, more farmers they send broke, more small businesses they send broke, more areas that are cordoned off, the more they destroy our energy sector, shut it down, make it incapable of operating, and the more stuff that they push towards the WHO, and I include the international health regulations and the One Health policy, that's what gives them the power to do the things I'm talking about. So when we talk about, are we talking about a genocide program? Does the NDIS then extend to a program of euthanasia? You bet it does. So therefore, that's why we're here. We're going to continue to push these politicians and say, well, you better start telling people what's going on, and you better start pulling us out of this stuff, and understand these politicians are here to make money. Do they give us stuff about you or your families? The vast majority of them, hell no. You are a problem. You are an issue, and they're in the business of getting rid of you. So therefore, we're going to push these people, and we're going to get answers. We're starting to get pretty well known around Parliament House now, Billboard Battalion, with our green shirts and pink shirt and red shirt. There's so many people who now come up to us and talk to us and say, listen, we love the work you're doing. You're doing a fantastic job. We're even starting to get a number of the politicians who are actually acknowledging the stuff we're doing here, because we're not going away and we don't pull our shots. We shoot straight, and we will chase these answers, because we're looking at the destruction of our country right now. This is happening. It is unfolding. So we'll sign off, I think, by saying today that we ran into a woman at the Canberra airport yesterday, and you know, we were talking about a lot of the farmer stuff, and she was talking a lot about the Murray-Darling Basin plan in the Riverina in New South Wales there. And she said, you know, all our farmers do is whinge and moan. She said when things are happening, they're never on the front foot trying to take things on and stop it before it happens. Completely reactionist. Now, I've been in this space for a long, long time, and that's pretty well correct. There are a handful of farmers who are having a go, but the vast majority of the ones that actually will stand up and fight is completely reactionary. They don't take things before they happen, and therefore that's a big part of our problem. So I think that she was spot on the money. Hopefully with the work that we're doing, we can encourage farmers to say, take some interest in your own life, in your own industry, your business, your future, your kids' future. But by the same token, we would say that to all our union workers, people in the construction industry, people who are in the fishing industry, or the Chamber of Commerce stuff, small businesses, big businesses, people who are blue-collar workers and white-collar workers. It's time that you step up to the plate, because there are serious things happening. You need to get in this fight, because there's going to be nothing left if you don't. And these politicians, they are the primary weapon that they have against us. They are the most important things to them in terms of taking down our country. So, all right, well, thanks very much to everybody for watching. Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion here in downtown Canberra. We've just seen the end of the last two sitting weeks. Today's Friday, the 5th of September 2025, and we'll be back again for the next sitting. We'll keep the pressure on these politicians, and we will start to make them react, and we're going to make them push back. We're going to crack this open, and they are going to be facing the hard questions, exactly like the ABC should be asking, but don't. And, you know, your Win News, Sky News, Channel 10, Channel 7, Channel 9, you know, most of the printed media, most of the radio stuff, what's online, most of the media help to cover this up. And they give them a free ride through this whole system, and they're helping to destroy your country. All right, people, thanks very much. Wade Northhausen for Billboard Battalion. We'll see you next time.